Mr. Garland, Facebook has admitted in a letter to the Arizona Attorney General that it, quote, allows people to share information about how to enter a country illegally or request information about how to be smuggled, close quote. 8 U.S.C. 1324 criminalizes aiding and abetting entry into the U.S. By illegal aliens. Have you sent a letter or issued a memorandum similar to the 10-421 memorandum directing departmental resources to be dedicated to investigating the apparent violation of law, similar to the one? Have you done that?
I haven't seen the letter or information that you're talking about, but if it was sent to the department, I'll make sure that we look at it.
It has been reported that Mark Zuckerberg also spent over $400 million in a, quote, carefully orchestrated attempt, close quote, to influence the 2020 election. Those efforts have been referred to as a, quote, private takeover of government election operations, close quote. Have you sent a letter or issued a memorandum directing departmental resources be dedicated to investigate these claims?
I don't know what was done in 2020 in the previous administration of the Justice Department.
We're talking about the election of 2020. All of this has come out since then, and you've not, you're totally unaware of that?
I'm not aware of what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
So you have not sent a memo, or you're not investigating that either. Last Sunday, more than 300 churches in Virginia aired a video featuring Vice President Harris advocating the election of Terry McAuliffe as governor of Virginia. This appears to violate Section 501c3 of the IRS Code, as well as other election laws, and seems to be an orchestrated effort by the VP and McAuliffe to violate the law. Have you sent a letter or issued a memorandum directing departmental resources be dedicated to investigating this apparent violation of law, similar to the letter you issued, or excuse me, the memorandum you issued on October 4th targeting parents who exercise their First Amendment rights at local school boards?
No.
On May 24th, 2021, under oath before a congressional committee, Dr. Anthony Fauci denied the National Institute of Health provided any funding for gain-of-function research, saying, quote, that categorically was not done, close quote. Today, this very day, the NIH issued a statement contradicting that testimony, which suggests that Dr. Fauci may have committed perjury. This is a criminal offense, and I'm left to wonder if you intend to look into that and send a communication such as a letter or a memo similar to the October 4th memo that you issued regarding parents going to school board meetings to investigate Dr. Fauci's potential perjury.
Again, I'll refer to the long-standing departmental norm that we don't comment about investigations pending or unpending. The general point that you're making normally would come with a referral from the relevant committee, but other
so
than that, I can't say
the actual point I'm making is you chose, as a response to a letter from the National School Board Association, and as you said earlier today, newspaper accounts, to issue a memorandum to organize task force and investigate and put a chill on parents' participation before school boards. Now you say, oh, I didn't mean to provide a chill, but that's exactly what any sentient being would have assumed would happen when you asked the federal government to begin looking into this. Of course parents are going to be nervous now. Of course people will step back. That's the purpose of my questioning. So when we get to these things like Zuckerberg, Facebook, Kamala Harris, we get to, and Dr. Fauci's purported perjury, there's no indication. You didn't hold back. You issued a press release. Do you see the distinction? How about this one? Since January 20 of 2021, Border Patrol has encountered more than 1.3 million aliens at the southwest border trying to illegally enter the country. You yourself have acknowledged today that that remains a crime. Have you sent a letter or issued a memorandum to U.S. attorneys directing prosecution of these cases?
No, and the reference of cases comes from the Department of Homeland Security, as I mentioned before.
Look, you managed to issue a memorandum about parents showing up at school boards. Why can't you issue a memorandum regarding the million-plus people who illegally enter the country and encouraging your U.S. attorneys to prosecute those cases? They are there constantly.
The time of the gentleman has expired. Ms. Correa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Attorney General, welcome, and thank you for your good work. I wanted to turn back to the issue of safety of elected officials, federal and local. You mentioned a couple of words a few minutes ago, true threats and serious bodily injury. Now, I would say that's within the context of, is what is said already, which is the First Amendment, and that all of us are public officials. We chose to run for office, to be in elected office. Yet recently, not recently, but throughout the years, we have been confronted with people in our faces, serious bodily harm, us being threatened. A dozen years ago, that happened to me in California. Called my local attorney general, state attorney general, Bill Lockyer then. Bill told me, he said, Lou, never swing first. You will be criminally liable. I'll put you in jail myself, and you'll have tort issues as well. On January 7th, the day after the insurrection, I was at Dulles Airport, surrounded by, it was probably about 20 people in my face. I remembered Bill Lockyer's words. I didn't want to swing first. I had people in my face surrounding me. The only thought was, better make sure this guy, if he does swing, doesn't connect. Otherwise, I'm going down. So, sir, what are we left with today? The nice corporal that responded to that incident accused me of starting the fight. Number two, I asked for an investigation. The nice people at the airport said no laws were broken, yet we talk about true threats, serious bodily injury. At what point do we essentially, at what point would you draw the line in terms of us protecting ourselves? And the sad thing about January 7th for me is it's nothing new. That happens in my district for the last few years over and over again. Police officers show up, First Amendment, and we're left to essentially handle the situation many times on our own. So, Mr. Attorney General, I'm trying to figure out some clear lines here. How do we as elected officials protect ourselves? Are we left to conceal weapons? What is it exactly that we need to do? You know, I'll take the heat. I'm an elected official, but where does that First Amendment stop and that serious bodily injury concept come into play? Thank you.
Well, the courts have been quite clear that threats that of an intent to commit an unlawful act of death or a threat of serious bodily injury are not protected by the First Amendment. Anger, getting up in your face, those things are protected unless there are some local provisions one way or the other.
They are protected.
Yes, people can argue with you. People can say vile things to you. People can insult you. I'm sorry to say this. Doesn't mean I'd like that idea. Doesn't mean that that's where we should be in a civil society. But the First Amendment protects vigorous argument. With respect to self-protection, I'm going to have to leave that to the Capitol Police and their protective organization to give that kind of advice to you. If you think you have a threat, if you've received a threat of violence or threat of serious bodily injury, you should report it. Many other members of Congress have done that. We just arrested somebody in Alaska for threatening the two Alaskan senators. This happens.
Mr. Attorney General, I only have 54 seconds left, and I guess what I'm looking for is some kind of a message from your office at the federal level that there are certain things that are tolerated under the First Amendment and some that are not, and those that cross that line will be prosecuted. And it also spills over to protection of poll workers at elections. I'm out of Orange County, California. We've had private poll workers threatening voters. We've had letters focused threatening certain voters, keeping them from the polls. And yes, you can come back in retrospect and prosecute, but you've already affected the outcome of an election. So I'm hoping somehow to figure out a way to really send a clear message to these individuals that, you know, violations of our democracy, messing with our elections is not going to be tolerated, so they know that going into their actions. Thank you. With that, I yield.